Welcome back. While we are waiting the defense case to get underway later today for Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tellis, he is accused of killing veteran investigative journalist Jeff Gehrman, who was found stabbed to death outside his home over Labor Day weekend back in 2022. Police were able to extract surveillance footage of a possible suspect from a neighbor's security camera, where a person with a large straw sun hat and an orange jacket was spotted walking to and from Gehrman's home. A maroon Yukon Denali was also spotted, and an SUV of this color, make, and model was registered to Tellis's wife. Go figure. According to the arrest report, prosecutors say the straw hat was found cut into pieces inside of Tellis's home, while they argue for a motive for murder that stems from articles that Gehrman wrote that were critical and very unflattering of Tellis's office, as well as his personal affairs, arguing that he was having inappropriate relationships with staff members. Tellis maintains that he was framed. For now, let's continue catching you up on yesterday's key testimony. The state called an investigator who extracted searches from the defendant's phone to the stand. Very important evidence for the prosecution, especially if the defendant takes a stand. You can be assured they will be cross-examined, or he will be cross-examined by prosecutors. Let's take a listen.
Was there also an extraction report created relating to images that appeared to have information related to Jeffrey Gehrman?
There was.
How many tags were there?
7.
Why don't you tell us again about the pathway? Where did these images come from?
From the Google Photos app.
So the same application that had kind of like this, the pictures of the cars driving by, same place.
Yes.
The same place where all the bronze circle pictures are taken, correct?
Yes.
Okay, those came from the 12th and the 15th. Tell us about this date. When do these images, when are these at least show up as being modified?
8/23/2022.
Okay, so just a couple of days later, correct?
Correct.
And every one of these 7 images is from that date, correct?
Correct.
If you could, please read me the name that is under registrants.
Jeffrey M. Gehrman.
Okay. I'd like to go 2 notches down. Please read the registrant and the address.
Jeffrey M. Gehrman, 7216 Bronze Circle, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89128, I believe.
Okay. Was there also an extraction report derived from images that appeared to come from Google Maps?
Yes.
Okay. So, let's first pull up the extraction report. How many images relating to Google Map images were tagged for this report?
132.
So that signifies that there was 132 images found in his phone related to this particular topic?
That were tagged, yes.
Okay. Let's start scrolling through some of this. For example, with this first one here, can you tell us, when you look at the pathway, where are these images coming from?
From the Google Maps app.
So they're coming from the Google Maps app?
Yes.
All right. What's the modification date on this?
Again, that would be the last time that application interacted with that specific artifact.
Please read out the date for entry number 1.
8/12/2022, 9:55:24 p.m.
Okay. Let's look at this second one. What is there? It's off by a couple of different seconds, correct?
Yes.
But all the information remains the same?
Yes.
Does 8/12/22 appear to be the same date for these items?
It does.
Let's just all the way down to the end, all from 8/12. Is that correct?
Correct.
So let's open up a folder that says 7216 Bronze Circle. You recognize what you're looking at here?
A home?
It's a home. Is it in a certain type of web program?
This would be a Google Street View, yes, so Google Maps.
Okay. And so at this particular home, this is kind of an angle. This would be if someone was in Google Maps and pulled up a street view of 7216 Brown Circle. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it just another angle of,
Yes.
that same home?
Yes.
Let's start getting to the actual images. So this is one of the images that was found inside Mr. Tellis's phone. Does this correspond to one of the thumbnails?
Yes.
How about this one?
Yes. 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 Yes.
What color is that shoe on the right?
It appears to be gray.
Okay. What brand does it appear to be?
Nike?
Sir, when we look at the sole of the shoe, is it purely white or does it appear to have a design somewhere in the middle here?
Appears there's a design.
What sort of design does it look like?
4 black squares.
Okay. And this image was found inside Mr. Tellis's phone.
Yes.
And the modified date on that was August 19th of 2022.
Yes.
Okay, so roughly, do my math correctly, 13 days before Mr. Garriman's murder, 12 days, if my math is off.
Sounds correct.
Okay. And then this image appears 3 different times.
That's correct.
Well, Brian, I think I may have heard you say, I wasn't sure, it looks bad. That was you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, geez, the thing that struck me about these photos, it's the first time I'm seeing them, was that it's bad enough that there's 132 images, from what I understand, just around the time that this crime was committed. But it's what the pictures depict that I think is even more brutal. They're not artistic photos like, hey, let me go take a picture of some bucolic scene. They're of walkways and entranceways. They're kind of pictures of that a person would take when they were planning on murdering somebody.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if these are pictures that are coming directly from Tellis, and if they are from Tellis, that's the argument being that he is scoping out the scene. But I think the pictures of the shoes, that's what's really telling, because if we remember, they're looking at the exact outfit that person was wearing with that kind of sun hat and the poncho and the construction outfit. I think they also had those bright colored shoes, or maybe the gray shoes, the Nike ones they're pointing to. And then I think there's evidence that Tellis may have tried to destroy those. And so you have 2 things there. You have the ability to identify Tellis through clothing, because it was difficult from that kind of getup that the prosecution is arguing he's wearing, and also the destruction of clothes that people don't typically do, which we consider consciousness of guilt, trying to destroy the evidence that would ID him. And so I think both of those aspects help when you're looking at, again, yeah, so it's the gray shoes that this person's wearing. Basically the idea that Tellis is trying to destroy evidence.
Yeah, this is, when I'm thinking about it, this is like when the prosecutor had been in the situation so many times. So now, again, I don't want to harp on preparing for cross, but it's a pivotal moment in this case. And I'm thinking of now every question that the defense asked of the witnesses, and what do those questions mean? Where are they going? I'm trying to anticipate. I'm trying to look at all this evidence, like the shoe, as you put it, and the straw hat cut up in the house, and the DNA under the fingernail. Like, where are they going with this? I'm trying to figure out what the theory is, so that I can more effectively cross-examine the witness. So that's what prosecutors are going through right now in anticipation of the defendant testifying. Let's listen to a little bit more of this crucial witness.
Are you aware of how many devices, communication devices, had access to this cloud?
I am not.
So it could be 1, it could be 20. You're not able to give an opinion or testimony in reference to the number of cell phones, correct?
With access to that cloud account, no.
You have had experience in your employee dealing with clouds that are hacked?
Personally, no.
Personally, but you've been, but you're aware of investigations wherein a person's cloud is hacked?
Yes,
In fact, we hear about it, don't we? Oftentimes, oh, my cloud was hacked.
we do.
You were not called upon to conduct an investigation concerning the hacking of this cloud, correct?
No.
Gene Rossi, it sounds to me like you were going to that place too. Planted evidence and hacked cloud accounts. Thoughts?
That's their only defense here, is that somebody else did it and somebody else hacked. It's consistent with the DNA theory. But I got to go back to what Brian just said. The shoes that this gentleman is walking down the street with, that appears to be his shoes. So I think that's as good as a fingerprint. Forget the DNA. But it is somebody else did it, and somebody else possibly hacked it. And they're going to say that the police did not fully investigate all the alternative theories of guilt, and they had confirmation bias that it was Mr. Tellis and nobody else.
All right. Well, you know what, Gene Rossi? We're going to take a quick break, but this is not a segment for anybody to go get something and miss, because when we come back, myself and Brian are going to face off like we normally do on the issue as to the defendant taking the witness stand, Brian taking the defense side, and myself taking the prosecution side. Don't hold it against Brian. He's got a tough argument to make. Right, Brian? We'll be right back.
Did he ever tell you he hated him?
Yes.
Do these appear to be posts by Mr. Tellis?
Yes, ma'am, they were. Typical bully, can't take a pound of criticism after slinging 100 pounds of BS. It seems to me that you valued sensationalism or the value of a potential takedown than actually telling the truth.
Mr. Tellis is going to ask for you to be willing to let the truth prevail.
Okay, as the defense prepares to present its case and their witnesses, we anxiously await the possibility of the defendant, Robert Tellis, taking the stand and testifying in his own defense. Remember, he is accused of stabbing Las Vegas Review-Journal reporter Jeff Gehrman to death due to what prosecutors say were articles Gehrman had published that were critical of Tellis, who was a public administrator for Clark County. Now, he was an elected official, so anything that was negatively written about him could affect his election prospects, which in fact, he did lose the election prior to this incident. So welcome back to this segment of State Your Case here on the Law&Crime Network, where we each put on our prosecutor and defense hats, and you guessed it, argue the state's case, argue the defense case, and I'm going to chat this time on the side of the prosecution as I normally do. And my co-analyst, Brian Buckmire, we've been doing this for years now. He's going to be arguing and debate whether or not the defendant, Robert Tellis, should testify and how we, as the prosecutor and defense attorneys, would question and cross-examine him. Now, disclaimer. The arguments presented by the attorneys are strictly for entertainment purposes only and do not reflect the true opinions of the commentators themselves. You know, this is interesting, Brian, that little disclaimer at the end, because, you know, the fact of the matter is, when you're advocating, sometimes you have to advocate for a position you may not wholly, it's not lying, but you want to argue, and sometimes it doesn't represent how you feel, but it represents what you should do as a lawyer. So I toss it to you first, and here's why I said you should go first. You should go first because you're the defense attorney that has to counsel a client as to whether or not they should take the witness stand. And I'd like you, before you start giving the argument as to what you would do if he does take the stand, tell me what goes into this relationship between the lawyer and the client when you're advising them if they should take the stand.
So I was taught that from day one, when you meet a client, it's about building a relationship, because one way or another, you're going to have to make the biggest decision or help that client make the biggest decision of their life. Either one, say, trust me enough to take this plea deal, or two, trust me enough to go to trial. And if you trust me enough for that second one to go to trial, then that might be the conversation that we're about to have now as to whether or not you testify. And for him, I would say, don't. There's no benefit here. This is a case where if our argument is that the evidence was planted and someone else committed the crime, there's no explanation that you can give. You're a politician. Any answer you give will be given a scrutiny that no other regular individual on this country or this world will be given. You're going to be seen as speaking out of both sides of your mouth, and there's going to be no benefit to what you say. You're always going to be perceived as a liar because of what and who you were and what this community believes based on these articles. So what are you going to say to talk your way out of this? Nothing. I would grill him as hard as I can, or any prosecutor would, in cross-examining him, and show him the mistakes that he would make. How'd your DNA get there? Why are you cutting up your shoes? Why are you doing all these things that are showing consciousness of guilt? And how are you going to answer that in a way that 12 people are going to buy what you're saying? I don't think you can do it. Don't testify. Now, ultimately, it's up to the client to testify or not, and he makes a decision.
I just want the producers to know how deftly I got Brian to make my argument for me as the prosecutor in this segment. No, but you're right. You have to, I was telling the producer this, you literally have to cross-examine your own client saying, I mean no disrespect, but here's how I would go about this. And I do agree with you. The question is, what's the value that you get from this? Because all these little things that the defense did about the prosecution didn't do this and the police didn't do that, all that goes away if the jury doesn't believe the defendant. But Brian, just last point before we get into your argument, the fact of the matter is sometimes no matter how much you bring the horse to water, they're not going to drink the advice because there's a lot of ego at play with people like this that think they could talk their way out of it. What's been your experience?
My experience is I've had about 5 or 6 jury trials, and I think about half of them, or maybe 2/3 of them, I've worked with my client to testify, and ultimately we decide that they don't. And I think it comes down to the relationship that you have and the trust that they have in you. Ego is a big thing. I get it. Mine is bigger than the average person as well. But I think if the client truly trusts you and you can really explain to them how difficult testifying is, regardless of guilt or innocence, I haven't led any client astray in terms of whether or not they should testify. And I think most of them, if not all of them, are happy with my advice.
Yeah, I found in my experience, both mainly as a prosecutor, that the ones that are the high level, high performers, high educated, high level jobs, type A personalities, used to calling the shots, are more likely not to listen to their attorneys, but rather on their own instincts, which has served many very long state prison sentences. Okay, Brian, you're up. You're doing direct examination. Tell us why it is we should believe your client in this mythical situation as to why he is not guilty of the offenses in this case.
So again, I'm instructing my client not to testify. I don't think there's a benefit here, but if he does, I think it's a two-pronged approach with his testimony. One, to eliminate any motive, and two, to take the poison out of any sting that the prosecutor could give on cross-examination. So one, in terms of motive, he has none. Whether or not Gehrman lives or dies, his words are already out there and the damage is already done. My client killing him doesn't solve any of his problems. In fact, he lost his bid for re-election before this case came about. And so any damage that this investigative reporter could have done already happened. Him going and killing someone, he's going to lose everything else, everything that he actually does have. So let's eliminate any kind of motive through the direct examination. Second, how did your DNA get on his nails? I don't know. How did this happen? I don't know. Why were you cutting up your shoes? Give him a plausible explanation for it. And this way, when the prosecution gets up there on cross-examination, I'm sitting and waiting to say objection, asked and answered. Objection, asked and answered. I don't want the prosecutor to be able to ask those questions in any kind of substantive way because we've already addressed it on direct examination in a way that I can control. That's my plan for this.
Okay, here I go. Okay, listening to the testimony now. I don't know what's coming out on direct examination, so I'm preparing ahead of time. Let's assume nothing major comes out. I want to keep my cross-examination tight. I want to keep it in a box. I want to ask questions in a way that no question I ask can hurt me. And I believe I would start out with motive. And I understand Brian's argument, but I would say, is it not a fact you have a text that's out there that says you're trying to ruin my life? That you are basically, your paramour was telling telling everybody that because of these articles, you hated the victim in this case. Is that true or not true? I don't care how he answers the question. His paramour, his alleged paramour, is the one who said that on the witness stand in the government's case. And the fact is you lost the election, and you weren't all too happy you lost the election because you attributed it to the articles that he wrote. So maybe this is a little revenge, sir, is it not? Again, I don't care how he answers the question. I'm communicating to the jury through the question irrespective of the answer. Then I'm getting into the physical evidence that can't lie, and I'm going to see how he's going to respond to it, because if he responds to it in the negative, he's going to seem like a liar and his credibility is going to be shot. Do you disagree that the individual that was coming back and forth from this home was wearing a straw hat and an orange jacket? Can you explain, sir? And I will ask the open question. I will ask, can you explain why there was a shredded straw hat in your house? And does your wife drive a Yukon Denali that's a maroon in color, similar to the Denali that was recovered here? Yes or no, sir? Is that true or not? He's going to have to answer yes to that. I'm going to get into the fingernail clippings. Do you dispute the DNA expert when they say the victim's DNA wasn't on their body, wasn't on their clothes, wasn't in some place in close proximity, but literally under the fingernails of the victim themselves? Do you dispute that testimony? He could say, yes, I dispute it. It's a lie. It's a cover-up. I really don't care what he says. I'm bringing my case out and all the things that substantiate the motive. Sir, is it true that you took 132 pictures of very strange things? Can you explain why you took a picture of a walkway? Can you tell me why you took a picture of a doorway? Can you tell me why you took a picture of a garage? Can you tell me why was it you were focused on this individual's house days, if not sooner, before the murder takes place? It couldn't be, sir, that you were casing this out ahead of time in order to perpetrate a crime. Again, I don't care how he answers the question. It's how I'm communicating it to the jury. And lastly, I mean, there's a lot of things I would get into. On your computer is the victim's vehicle registration and his address. Why would you need that, sir? It seems like you're doing a lot of surveillance of this individual after you lost an election and blamed him, hated him, and blamed him for the fact that that's the reason you lost the election. Do you agree or disagree that that is the motive as to why you killed him? I don't care what the answer to the question is. I'm bringing my direct case as a prosecutor through him, through my questions. And of course, that's if along the way he does not make a mistake in his testimony. And if I know that there's a mistake in his testimony and I can prove through objective evidence that doesn't lie, like surveillance video doesn't lie, a Yukon Denali doesn't lie, a straw hat doesn't lie, DNA under the fingertips don't lie, 132 images on your phone don't lie, computer records about vehicle registration and the computer don't lie. But you want us all to believe that all of this thing was set up by multiple people, it would have to have been, in order to convict you of a crime you didn't commit. So that's where I would go. We would see if he makes any mistakes along the way. But my point to our fellow lawyer people out there, whatever, is these questions asked in this way can never hurt you, because it doesn't make a difference really what the answer is. He can deny it. The point is you're showing ad seriatim. You're having the first opportunity to put it all together for the jurors, in my opinion. Brian, you have some comments.
Well, you got to be careful, because the response could be that that could hurt you, I think, is I wasn't casing the joint to kill him. I was casing the joint to kill his reputation. You have to understand that this investigative journalist went into the most inner workings of Robert Tellis's life. He pierced that privacy veil, so to speak, to expose all of this dirt on him. And so what if Robert Tellis gets up there and says, yes, I did take all those photos because I wanted to see if he had a mistress. I want to see what dirt I could pick up under him. I was casing the joint not to kill him, because if I killed him, it makes him a martyr. I don't want this man to be a martyr. I want this man to feel the same degradation and the same horribleness that he did of my reputation. I didn't want to kill him. I want to kill his reputation. You've got it all wrong.
Yeah, that's why I think taking pictures of bushes, driveways, and pathways and sidewalks don't really humiliate anybody, not even if it took them my house. And I've got a lot to be humiliated for. All right, Brian, excellent argument. You had the shorter end of the stick on that one for sure. We're going to take a quick one here, but you did great, of course. We're going to take a quick break here at Law&Crime Network. We'll be right back.